What's up, everybody? We are back here again. We are Morbid Curiosities, and I am Mercedes Martinez. With me is my awesome co host, the nefarious necromancer.
Nicholas Ewers. Lovely morning today. How's it going, Mercedes?
Not too bad. How are things on your end of the world?
Not too bad. Feeling pretty good today. I'm kind of excited about the movie that we're going to be talking about today. You want to take it away?
Yeah, I will start us off. So, guys, we are entering our new season. We have mentioned it before, but we are now covering a franchise that is very close to my heart, Scream. So, the first film, directed in released in 1996, directed by Wes Craven, such a classic film. And you said you only saw this one out of the entire franchise, correct?
Yeah, I have a little bit of just small knowledge of one and two, but yeah, overall, this is the only one I had seen. And even then, I didn't have much familiarity with this movie. I've never, similar to Child's Play, actually, I've never sat down fully locked into this movie, paid attention to what was being said, what was happening. I kind of just remembered the iconic moments, mainly the intro. I feel like I've seen that intro a million times. But yeah, this was a fresh experience for me actually watching this first movie again.
Yeah, I have a lot of memories with this movie, with this franchise in total as well. But it's such a good film to bring you back to the 90s, and just and just be able to appreciate a fresh look on the horror genre when it was released. So spoilers ahead, guys, for Scream. I'm pretty sure everyone has watched this film, but if you haven't, please go watch it. It is such a fucking banging good time. I feel like I might jump around with some of the scenes and details in here because I love this film so much and I'm pretty excited to talk about it. So if I do, I apologize. You can pull me back wherever you need the conversation to go to. But yeah, are you ready to start us off?
It's the Wild West over here at Morbid Curiosities. So let's let loose with this one. Do you want me to go first or do you want to go first with your initial thoughts?
I'll go first. I actually want to just jump right into the intro actually.
Yeah.
So you have the lovely Drew Barrymore getting a phone call in her house, and you hear this velvety smooth voice coming from the other end. She doesn't know who it is. Guy claims he dialed the wrong number, but then continues to call her because he wants to talk to her. The girl's making popcorn, and it's the stovetop popcorn. That was hilarious because I'm pretty sure regular popcorn was a thing at that time.
How could it not burn? I feel like that popcorn would always burn. I've never made it that way though, not to my knowledge.
And it's funny too because of the fact that scary movie is a thing now. That's why I had liked when me and you were texting and you said you feel like this movie is a kind of a rip off of Scary Movie. Because I would watch that film a lot when it came out. All of those stupid details from those scenes are kind of like warped into the this film when I watch it because whenever they
Yeah.
revert back to the popcorn, I'm expecting it to be that fucking ginormous bubble of popcorn. So when that doesn't happen, it's funny.
I have that issue with a lot of movies that Scary Movie had ripped off. So this is actually a good time to talk about this real quick. I had seen Scary Movie before I saw Scream, so that really did affect the way that I watched Scream the very first time. I had not been able to take it seriously, and
No
I had
shit.
seen yeah, I had seen Scary Movie 3 before I saw like The Ring, I think the one that's really parodying, so I couldn't take The
Mhm.
Ring seriously at all. So Scary Movie did initially affect the way I watched this, but interesting detail too. this movie was originally titled Scary Movie, and
Mhm.
Bob Weinstein changed it to Scream.
I mean, which do you think would have worked better with this film? Scream or Scary Movie?
In retrospect, just because Scary Movie exists and has its own formed identity, I I would have to say I like it the way it is, but putting myself where they like, in their shoes back in the '90s, even though the Weinsteins are scumbag pieces of shit, as we all know, Scream is a better title for this movie, especially Matthew Lillard later in the movie. This is a ad lib line. We'll get into a lot of Matthew Lillard talk later,
Yeah.
but he says it's gonna be a scream like that. I,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
kind of love it, and you don't get that without the title. And yeah, I think the change was necessary.
It's actually funny because I was thinking they could have called Scary Movie Shriek if they kept this movie or this franchise as Scary Movie instead of Scream. But then I remembered there is a movie called Shriek If You Know What I Did Last Friday the 13th. And they are making fun of all of the horror movies
Mm.
and stupid TV shows. Have you seen that?
I haven't, but that just by the title, I could kind of tell what it's all about. Uh,
Yeah,
is it enjoyable? Did you like it?
I did enjoy it. It's a stupid watch, but you have some
Yeah.
laughs in there, so I would definitely give it a watch.
All of that reminds me of a little detail that I won't say right now, but yeah, I remember a little bit about the future movies too, now that I think about it.
Dope. See, it's all coming back to you.
Yeah,
Um,
this movie's just so in the cultural zeitgeist. Like we were saying off mic, these are very important movies. At least this first one is, aside from Psycho, the most important movie that we could possibly cover, at least like within the first year or so of our podcast. Unless we do like
definitely.
Halloween or something.
Ooh, we're gonna have to cover that soon. I'm too anxious, or not anxious. I'm too excited for that season, but we'll get into that. And it's cool because they do have some parts of Halloween in here too.
Yeah, Halloween's gonna be like half a year of our lives basically, but
That is
I'm
okay.
excited.
That's a good year.
Yeah. Yeah. But so the intro, you were, getting into Miss Drew Barrymore, her popcorn?
Yeah, that's the most important detail. But what's cool about this is, yeah, you see her being a little flirtatious on the phone when I mean, she's entertaining this guy. She still doesn't know who the fuck it is, but he's just asking her little questions. Okay, what's your favorite scary movie? Iconic line. And of course, she says Halloween, gives her some extra brownie points right there. And, once the conversation starts to turn because the guy on the other end says, I want to know who I'm looking at. And I remember first watching it as a kid, I'm like, "What does that mean?" But being able to really watch it now, it's like, for its time to hear that back then, even seeing her house with all the doors that have windows, it was fucking terrifying. So that whole setup in the beginning was such a good way to begin this film. Good is not even a good word to describe this.
Iconic, would be like,
Better.
it's it's grown to be bigger than the movie that it's in, I think, this, intro to horror. This intro to this horror film, it's subversive. Like, at the time, I mean, going into it for me, I knew already what was going to happen the first time I had watched it because I had seen Scary Movie, actually. But it's it's ridiculous. But it's built a reputation that I don't think any horror intro will ever be able to really surpass. Like, Scream is just so unforgettable, and it's in film culture. Horror fans as much as the horror fans in this movie reference other movies, like Scream has become that movie to reference, and the scene is one of them. Um, yeah, with that intro scene, what I really do find creepy and scary about it is she feels so exposed with that big glass, like, back door type of thing leading to the pool. I it She feels very vulnerable. There's a clear entry point. This guy feels like he could get in through it at any point in time.
Exactly. I hate houses that have doors like that, that are just made of glass and they have so many windows that don't have curtains on it. I get it. You want the natural light from the sun uh beaming in the house. That's a great way to illuminate your house, but at night, fuck that. I don't want to just be sitting there watching TV and imagining a silhouette outside, because more than likely there will be someone standing outside in my case. But to touch on the vulnerability aspect, if I said that word correctly, with her, she's setting up to watch a horror movie herself. She's making her popcorn. She's getting ready to throw her VHS in. The That's great to see those tapes. But she also, it's a random fact or detail that I saw. She doesn't have socks on. So to me, that makes her more vulnerable, because she's supposed to be completely comfortable at home, just relaxing for the night. Her parents aren't home yet. And now she's getting this threatening phone call. So, with her being close to all these windows, all the doors that seem to be unlocked for some reason, completely exposing her. And once, he's really threatening her that he is going to kill her, they ring the door well, he rings the doorbell, and I love the, like, shot of the camera. It's focusing on Drew Barrymore, her character Casey Becker, but then it shoots back to the door, and it's, like, come zooming out, like, backwards. So, I don't know why, that just makes me feel so uncomfortable, because she really doesn't have anywhere to hide. She's just in the middle of her open ass house. And then even her door has like a few of those little windows in there. So anyone could be watching her right now.
Yeah, she feels completely surrounded, especially on rewatch. And guys, spoilers again. I always feel the need to drop it a second time before I completely ruin the movie. But you watch it and you realize there's two people that are fucking with her in this scene too. So it
Hmm.
on rewatch it plays even more horrific in a way, because I always did wonder too, the first time I'd watched it before I really sat and thought about what's happening in this movie. I always thought, how could one person be doing this? How could someone like disembowel this guy and set up all of this stuff with him in the chair so quickly? But yeah, on rewatch, it was just very interesting. I'm like, yeah, there's clearly two people at play here. So yeah, everything just felt a bit more tense and kind of violating.
Definitely. And then she ends up finally admitting, "No, I do have a boyfriend. He can come and kick your ass, whatever." She's bawling her eyes out, but then the the guy on the phone is like, "Oh, his name wouldn't be Steve, would it?" And then that's just like a fucking mic drop right there too, because she's like, "Wait, what the hell? I didn't tell him my name. Sure as fuck didn't tell him his name. So how does he know his name?" And then she sees him outside on her patio all tied up, like you were mentioning. That's so fucked up. I feel like a lot of people forget about that kill scene involving him. He's just a side character, not even a side character, just an extra kill count body. But his death is fucking brutal too, because yes, imagine he has two of these killers abducting him, beating his ass just to make sure he's tied up in a chair. And then he sees he's at his girlfriend's house. And then I'm assuming he can hear the two killers like on the phone with her if they're nearby, which I'm assuming they are. So just imagine what this guy is going through from the outside looking in. Just that has to be even like more terrifying for him. Also knowing, I'm probably gonna die right now.
Yeah, he also hears her say that she doesn't have a boyfriend too if he's listening
Right?
to that phone call. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's
Like, bitch, I'm about to
oh.
die here for you, and you're not even acknowledging our relationship.
One thing I learned from the writer director commentary actually is so the MPAA tried to give this movie an NC-17 rating. It seemed like they were hell bent on it, most
Mhm.
or especially because of the ending. But this disembowelment scene, as we go throughout each kill in the episode, or yeah, each kill in the movie throughout our episode, I'll talk more and more about different MPAA things, but they had to cut down shots of that sequence of the disembowelment just to get it to an R rating. And same with Drew Barrymore, a few of her moments too, with involving her death. It's fucking, yeah, this movie almost didn't really get released because of a couple different situations.
Yeah, which is crazy because I think when I did watch the actual tape for this film when it came out, I could be wrong, but I feel like I saw, all of his organs like falling, whereas every time I watch it now, and on this DVD, you hear them like slicing him up, and then you just see the aftermath. You don't see like everything just pouring out of him. Again, I could be wrong on that, but I do remember that fact.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was some kind of alternative, slightly more gruesome cut that was out in theaters and made its way to VHS, and maybe it got toned down a little bit by the DVD era. Or it could be a case of you saw this movie at a young age and you filled in so many gaps with your imagination that it kind of played as like headcanon for the movie when you reflected on it. Because I've had that happen a few times.
Yeah, this movie scarred me for my little life that I had when I watched it.
When did you first see it?
I had to be younger than 10, but I just remember my mom, she worked at this laundromat that was close by our house, and I did not want to stay at home by myself anymore. Like my siblings would be out doing whatever, my dad would be working, my mom would be working, and I was just thinking, well, what the hell am I going to do? I don't want to stay here. I'm going to get killed. And we still had house phones at that time. And I remember the house phone rang, and when I answered it, I swear I heard this guy's voice on there, but obviously it wasn't. I don't even think anyone was on the other end, which scared me even more. So I walked my scaredy cat ass over to my mom's job. I'm like, nope, can't do this. Can't be by myself anymore. So yeah, this movie scarred me for life. And there are some times, even with this watch for the episode, I had to look away at certain parts. Once they show Drew Barrymore's death scene with her hanging from the tree, I hate looking at that part. It is so fucked up the way they just zoom in on her.
What's kind of cool about that is they did one long shot and then they removed every other frame, so it kind of has the skipping effect. I don't know if they did that
Oh.
because of the MPAA, to hide it up more, if that was a artistic choice, but that was another cut they had to kind of make because of the MPAA. And then Drew Barrymore getting stabbed in the heart. The MPAA was like, that has to go, and they lied and said that's the only shot we got of this. We have to use it. And so they put it in the movie. But yeah, almost every kill, the MPAA was like, this, it's got to go. You have to cut it down, and they drastically cut it down, and kind of, in Wes Craven's opinion, took away from important character moments because he was saying there's something human about the way a character reacts after they've been brutally like harmed or are in the process of dying.
Yeah, when the killer's chasing her and then stabs her, I hate hear listening to that because the way she screams, it's painful to listen to. And then
Mhm.
even when he's like pulling the knife out of her after impact, she makes another scream and it's just like, God, that is so like that alone is brutal to hear. So if they were able to continue on and keep all of the stuff they did want, all of the scenes in here, like this movie would have been even more insane, but it's still a classic.
One thing that kinda bothered me the first time I had watched this, Scream, I had said before, if you guys hadn't listened to our 28 Days or Weeks Later episode, that I grew up in a household where I really wasn't allowed to watch horror growing up, so I really had to project my own imagination onto these VHS covers that I would see at, like, Family Video or whatever posters I would see at the movie theater, and the image of Ghostface I would see like around Halloween time, especially people wearing the Ghostface costume, that was abundant. There was one where like blood would squirt through the mask itself
Mhm.
that I remember like all like the most badass kids in school had that one.
Yeah.
Like the kids who were like the more grown up kids, it was kind of funny.
Mhm.
But so I remember similar to Chucky in a little bit, I was kind of bummed when I found out that Scream had a little bit of comedy in it. And I remember being kind of upset that the killer kind of was a little goofy in his physicality and didn't know what he was doing. But this time around, especially with how reckless and like very like aggressive he is with a knife and how he stabs people and harms people. And no, now knowing what I know about, that it's these two teenagers who are just, you know, pretty in a way bad at what they're doing. Uh, I've really grown to appreciate the physicality of Ghostface in this movie, and I'm kind of excited to see what they do with that character since I assume the mantle changes from movie to movie.
I like that you mentioned that because that leads me into how this movie is as a whole, even within the franchise. So I never knew what the term meta meant, but they are the whole crew in the movie are horror movie buffs and they're very aware of things that can happen in horror movies and then they just reference all these other movies. So they're finding similarities of, what happens in movies and what's happening in their reality at that time. And the horror genre, they had, Halloween and Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. So you had all of these killers that, they're technically looked at as a monster, like Michael Myers, Jason. Freddy, he's goofy too. But so here it's cool seeing like, all right, these two killers, they aren't monsters, so to speak, and they are not immortal or in any way. They are teenagers. So I think that kind of like made it even more terrifying for everyone to watch because you're seeing these kids and you're thinking, okay, I know what's going to happen. I know this scene is going to happen. I know what is going to happen here and here. But this film goes through so many loops. Like, even for the intro, Drew Barrymore dies, like how in Psycho, Janet Leigh died like early on in the film. So with her, she was in all the marketing posters. Everyone thought she was going to be the final girl. So the fact that she got killed early on, everyone was so confused. And that just showed, okay, well, what the fuck is this movie going to present to us now when they took away our main character that we thought was going to survive?
No, this movie does really throw you through a loop, and I wish I could watch it through like virgin eyes almost just to really experience it in the way
Right.
that the writer and director intended on it to be experienced because there's little hints that I've noticed like when Ghostface is in the bathroom and his boots plop down, and then later the sheriff, who's also in Nightmare on Elm Street, puts out a cigarette with his boot, and it's the
Hmm.
same type of boot that Ghostface has. And I make that connection. I get what they're doing there, but I already know the ending to this movie, so I'm not they're not hitting me in the way that they're supposed to. But I do really appreciate watching this movie and kind of noticing the different things that the filmmakers are setting up in order to throw the audience off, and trying to think about how that would have worked for someone who didn't know what the ending is to this movie. And then when you talked about how awesome this ending is, and we'll really get into it, this is an ending which I've started referring to on my other podcast, These Guys Got Juice, in our Long Legs episode, as a descent into madness ending, where it just feels like everything is crumbling apart. Anything could happen. It's just shit is hitting the fan left and right. Nobody has control. And I didn't notice that the first time I had watched it, but on these two rewatches I did for the podcast, god damn it, like the ending is like fucking ice cream to me. Well, I'm lactose intolerant, not ice cream. It's like chocolate chip cookies to me. It's fucking perfect, just a delight.
So then we are introduced to our main character in here, Nev Campbell. She plays Sidney Prescott. She's in her room and her greasy looking boyfriend sneaks in, and he I can't remember if I saw him in The Craft first or in here. Have you seen the movie The Craft?
I haven't seen The Craft. There's been a couple people in my life who have recommended it to me, but I've never fully sat down and paid attention to. I've been lightly exposed to it though. Skeet Ulrich is
Okay.
in The Craft though.
He is. He
He
doesn't
is,
have
yeah.
the greasy looking hair. He's still a dick, but I think The Craft came out after Scream. It says this Scream was released in December of 1996. No, it did come out earlier because uh, The Craft was May 3rd, 1996, and Scream was December 20th, 1996.
That's
So,
something I find interesting about the Scream franchise is they live in December and January. As far as I know, a friend of mine, Doug, actually from These Guys Got Juice, had told me that it was always a winter release, and I kind of appreciate that. I don't really feel Christmas when I am watching them, but it's cool that that's where they've grown to occupy their space in like the theatrical release system.
and it's another way to throw you off to give you a scary movie during Christmas time when everything should be happy. Blah, blah, blah.
It's all about subversion, and I can appreciate that in a franchise. Horror movies do play very well around Christmas time. Nosferatu, this past Christmas, that
Woo!
played pretty well. Yeah, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, that was marketed as the feel bad movie of Christmas.
I mean, I rewatched Nosferatu the other night, so it brought me back to when it was released.
Are you a fan of Nosferatu?
Yes, man, we got to cover that for this film too, or for the podcast as well.
I would like to cover all three Nosferatu movies because fuck, Werner Herzog, he directed Nosferatu in the 70s.
Yeah, we'll cover all of them. We're gonna have to have a season that is dedicated to vampires. What a season that'll be.
I know. I actually just logged some vampire movies on our list. There's a wide variety of vampire movies. We could spend a while really covering some interesting movies because there's a lot of indie vampire movies that I'd want us to talk about too.
Oh yeah, we definitely will. But yeah, so you have Sydney in here, and then you have her boyfriend Billy Loomis. You see that she's having some intimacy issues with him. He says he's not trying to pressure her into sex, but he really is. He's being a horn dog here. So that kind of sets up like how their relationship is doing at the moment. You see that there's something on her mind, you just don't know what it is.
In that scene too, it also sets up something I really like that I didn't notice until this last rewatch, but it sets up the door and closet
Mm. Mhm.
setup that we get from Ghostface later because her dad tries to enter the room, and I don't know quite how to describe it, but if the closet is wide open and you try to open the bedroom door, the closet almost prevents the bedroom door from opening. And I really like that detail. It's so specific. And I don't think you'll ever get to do that in another movie ever again. You get to do that once. It's so specific.
Yeah, you just have the closet door wide open behind her room door that is closed. So then that way, once her bedroom door is open, that doorknob hits the door of her closet, creating that barrier that no one could come in. And then too, when her dad is trying to make sure she's okay, she's like, "Can you knock, motherfucker? He heard you scream. He has every right to go and check on you, you dumb bitch." I'm sorry. I love Sidney Prescott in here.
No, she's a very, very good final girl. One of the best final girls, maybe? Question mark. But
Mhm.
her dad seems like a good guy,
I
actually.
know. She didn't have to do that to him. And then once you find out all the shit that's been happening to him, you feel so fucking bad, but I'll save that for later. But no, I do love Nev Campbell in here and her
Hmm.
character.
I like that they don't really show nudity with her too. They kind
Mhm.
of that's another subversion. These movies usually give you the nudity, and this movie withholds it from you. And I really appreciated that. It felt very tasteful.
Yeah, definitely. She gives Billy a little strip tease in a way, but then you don't see it. It's just something between them two. So, yeah, good comment
It
on
was
that.
very cute too, where she was like, "Can we keep it PG-13?" Something like that. I was like, "That's a very screenplay line," but I
Mhm.
like it. It was a nice moment.
Once they go to school the next day and they see all the news reporters, you see her just like looking at this one reporter. So we're introduced to Courtney Cox right there in the most heinous looking highlighter looking suit that I've
Hot
ever
off of
seen
Friends
before.
too.
I know, right? So, oh my god, that was ew. I hated her wardrobe in here. She stood out like a sore thumb in here. And then yeah, all of them find out about the kills of or the murders of Casey Becker and her boyfriend Steve, the sheriff and David Arquette's character in here. They are investigating, what happened, trying to talk to all the students and staff there. And then Sydney and the fucking cool ass group of friends that she has, they're all having their lunch
Mhm.
at the water fountain. And then we're introduced to every other character in here. Do you want to go into what you thought of her friend group?
I her friend group rubbed me the wrong way initially
What?
when I had first watched the movie, but no, it's something that's grown on me though. Again, this movie was all about like, or at least these rewatches were all about this movie growing on me. Because, like I said before, when I first watched it, it wasn't the movie I thought it was gonna be, so I kind of had a bit of a reaction while I was watching it, but it was one of those things where going into it this time, I was able to fully accept what it was, and I really grew to like her friend group. The movie guy fucking annoyed me a little bit. What's his name? Billy? I was
Randy?
like, Randy? I was like, "Is that me? Am I the Randy in people's lives?" That kinda annoyed me a little bit. I
I
do
love
real
Randy.
quick, before we get too far away from the intro, one thing I do wanna shout out is, a little technical detail about the opening shot is there was a the camera guy was actually standing on a crane with a Steadicam rig, and the crane lowered him, and then he walked off and did a tracking shot of Sidney. That's very cool, but in the background, Linda Blair, I think, is her name. I
Mhm.
hope I'm getting it right. From The
Yeah.
Exorcist, she's
Yeah,
talking
Linda
about a
Blair.
cult in the school. Yeah, and I never knew that. I thought that was really cool. I heard that on the commentary, and I appreciated that, but this is a very good setup and intro for all of these characters. This movie really efficiently lays out who everybody is, especially in relation to each other. You meet Dewey, and you realize like Dewey is what Tatum, is that her name?
Yeah,
Tatum's
Tatum.
sister?
Mhm.
Dewey is Tatum's sister. You realize that uh
Brother.
oh, Dewey is yeah, Tatum's brother. You realize that Dewey and Sidney also know each other because Sidney refers to him as Dewey, and he's like, "That's Deputy Riley."
Mhm.
And it cleanly and efficiently tells you, here's all of our players, here's their relationship to each other, and here's the kind of people they are. Courtney Cox has a line at the beginning. I forgot what it was. She says it to the camera guy, and she's like, when I say move it, what I'm telling you is move your fat tub of lard ass or something like that. It just,
Yeah.
you get everybody's gist immediately. You get that Dewey is kind of a dweeb a little bit, like everybody's dismissive to him even though he's a cop. It's I really did enjoy the characters and how they were set up a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I even um just intro in here and I like Dewey.
Oh, Dewey, I love Dewey and what's her name? Sorry, I'm bad with the names right now. I'll get better. Dewey and Gale. I love their relationship. They have such good chemistry, and I watching it realized I was like, "Oh yeah, these two got married in real life." It
Mhm.
comes through the fucking screen. I adore these two. I'm glad that I mean, that they have a future in this franchise.
Yeah, I think David Arquette was cast to be part of the friend group, but he was lobbying to play Dewey's character because he wanted to kiss Courtney Cox. So you can definitely see the fireworks between them and how he's like bashful just talking to her. It is definitely cool seeing their relationship, spark up in the film and then in real life as well. So definitely,
Yeah,
definitely cool.
I I'm excited because they got married in '99 and Scream 2 came out in '97. So I'm excited to see if that chemistry is still just bleeding through the screen. But what did you think of all these characters in the friend group? I know I was a little lukewarm on them at first, but I did like really warm up to them.
I like them a lot. Minus Tatum. So you you meet Matthew Lillard. He plays Stu, a fucking dorky ass dude, but he's one of the popular dorky guys. And then you have Jamie Kennedy's character who plays Randy. He's the actual dork out of them. He's the fifth wheel. And then you have Tatum Riley, like you said, Dewey's sister. She's Stu's girlfriend. They're all just eating a fucking bag of grapes, but they're talking about all the questions they got from the sheriff and from Dewey, and just going into, the murder of Casey Becker. I like the way they all joke with each other, and then they all get, a little flustered with each other because Stu is just blurting out, "Oh, this is how you gut someone." And then, well, not blurting out, but he answers Sydney's question. Randy's the one that's like blurting out stupid obscenities and then just being like not tasteful at all, making all these dumb jokes. But it's cool seeing their dynamic with each other because we're getting some humor in here after a really fucked up scene happened in the beginning. So, you can kind of buy that these people are friends, that they're close with each other. I loved the cast in here, and they were all familiar faces that people knew. So it was cool seeing them all together on this project.
Yeah, and I enjoy Matthew Lillard especially in this intro. Like I was saying, the very first time around when I watched this, I didn't understand why his character really rubbed me the wrong way when I saw him on screen, but watching it this time around, I think it's something I have an appreciation for. Him as an actor, he is so big in this movie. Physically, he feels like he takes up a lot of space, and personality wise, he has such a big personality and he gestures wildly. He's very like big and open. He doesn't really seem to respect personal space. He's always getting really close to people. He clings on to people. Near the end, there's a real like almost homoerotic moment between
Mhm.
with him and Billy when they're in the kitchen with what's her face with Sidney, and he's kind of behind Billy a little bit, just like really on him in almost like an intimate kind of way. And yeah, that's he doesn't really respect boundaries, but it feels very specific and real, and I really like I mean, I've seen Matthew Lillard play, like, Shaggy, and he was in Five Nights at Freddy's playing a pretty reserved role. I've seen him in more than just those movies, but he can go real toned down, and it's awesome seeing just this big presence that he has. It's something where yeah, I pinpoint why it rubbed me the wrong way, but years later, I now have an appreciation for it. I think it rubbed me the wrong way because in real life, a person like that would kind of bother me. Someone that would be so disruptive to my personal space.
I mean, he has another moment where he just puts both of his arms on the back of Jamie Kennedy, like on his shoulder, and then he starts fucking with his ear. And that was when Billy's like confronting Randy, just, oh, well, if you think I'm the killer, how do we know you're not the killer here? So that whole part, like, Stu's just staring at Randy's ear and just smiling and looking at Billy, making eye contact with him too. Yeah, no boundaries whatsoever. He's making all of his stupid jokes. I love his character though. I feel like I would vibe with a type of person like that in real life.
He's the best character in the movie now. I've said this before, maybe on this podcast, but Matthew Lillard is fucking magnetic in this movie. You can't take your eyes off of him, especially when he fully turns at the end. It's just I kept rewinding and rewinding just to watch every little detail on his face and his body movements. A lot of those lines too at the very end were ad-libbed. There were some things
Mhm.
that went a little wrong in shooting, and he stayed in character, and it
Yeah,
seems like you may know what I'm talking about. We'll get to the ending. There's a lot to dig into in that ending,
there
but
really is.
Lillard is a fucking gem. Th there was a certain point before this rewatch, you know, I haven't been too vocal about this, but I guess maybe I've been pretty dismissive of Scream and how great it is. But Lillard, I did like find his thing kind of annoying and the level of praise that he would get, but it's well deserved praise. He really, this movie is a whole star, maybe star and a half better because of Matthew Lillard. He elevates this movie.
Hell yeah. When I was younger, I just adored Randy's character. I thought he was silly, he was funny. He looked like a lame himself, which is what I felt like I was growing up. But now as an adult, it's like Matthew Lillard, he just steals the show in here. Yeah, Nev Campbell is the awesome final girl here, but yeah, I love this guy's character. So, after their like after this scene, Sydney goes home. You see the fucking massive ass house that her and her dad live in. It's secluded in the middle of nowhere. You see all this greenery behind her when she's on her back deck talking to Tatum. And it's just like, this house is so unnecessary for you two. Like, let me live there and deck it out myself. But
Yeah.
yeah,
All these horror movies just have beautiful houses.
Don't they? It is ridiculous. Like, y'all don't deserve it. You have like one person living here. But
It's because they're so, like, low budget. They're just like, "We need good-looking locations." It's production value. Like, this was 15,000,000, which I didn't know. It makes sense, but damn, that's pretty low.
but at least seeing where she is, that makes you think, damn, she's gonna be there by herself in this big ass house, and no one lives near her, and there's a killer on the loose. So she's definitely gonna be a target. And then you see little clips within the next scene when she's just getting her stuff ready to stay the night at Tatum's house, where, in typical scary movies, you think, okay, someone's going to be hiding in the closet or hiding behind the door. Once she closes the closet door, you hear the music change up a little bit into, an eerie effect, but no one is there at the moment. So that's where the movie's kind of throwing you off again. Okay, we know this is what you're expecting, but we don't have that playing out right now. That's for later.
Yeah, they do set up a good amount of moments where you think that the killer's gonna come out and the killer doesn't, or he comes out at times where you really would where a conventional horror movie really wouldn't have the killer come out. But what happens after this moment? Because Ghostface does inevitably come for Sidney pretty early on in the movie.
He does. So she actually goes to just chill, watch TV, and then she sees all these news broadcasts about the murders. So she's just trying to change it. And then she lands on
Yeah, and this
one
is where we
with,
hear about her mom.
yeah, yeah. So Gail Weathers is covering, what happened with her mom. So you find out the mom of Sydney was raped and murdered a few years ago, or no, 1 year ago almost. And obviously, that is a difficult subject for her to listen to. She turns it off. She goes and looks out the window and then falls asleep, which I don't know how you could fall asleep at that moment. But yes, then after she gets a quick phone call from Tatum, Ghostface calls her and they have their little not even banter, but just like a casual conversation because she keeps thinking that it's Randy fucking with her on the phone,
Yeah.
which which I thought was funny too because it's like I wonder how the killers felt knowing like okay, I'm about to, attempt to kill this person in their eyes. Like, I'm about to kill this person, but they're over here fucking thinking all of my hard work is this dumbass Randy's work. Like, because it doesn't really seem like they like Randy. But yeah, that just kept popping in my head. Like, damn, they can't even get credit where their credit is due in here.
Are they looking for the credit? Well, they do make themselves known at the end, so it
At the
does seem
end,
like
yeah.
it seems like they want their victims to know that it's them at a certain point. I mean, Drew Barrymore gets the mask off, and which
hmm
person do you think she's seeing in that moment? Do you think she's seeing Stu, or do you think she's seeing Billy?
At first, I thought it was Billy, but now, just watching a lot of reviews on Scream, I think it was Stu. So I was watching one called from CZ's World Horror History, and he was just covering the history of Casey Becker. And he was saying, she seemed like she was a little unfaithful and just very flirtatious with guys in general because the way he broke it down, he was like, well, she has a boyfriend, but doesn't tell Ghostface that when he asks her on the phone, do you have a boyfriend? But then ends up telling them, oh, yes, I do have one. And you find out that Stu dated Casey Becker for a short period, and then he said that he dumped her for Tatum. But Randy says no, Casey dumped her for or dumped him for Steve. So it's like okay, his revenge plot was to be the one to kill her.
Yeah, it really depends on who's in the costume at that moment, I guess. Because I get the idea that maybe only one of them is usually in the costume, but they're both. like at play in each situation, because in the scene we're about to get into, Sidney, when Ghostface is going after her, I believe that's Stu, and then Billy comes in through the window to kind of bail Stu out. And then what I like is they both seem to be conveniently showing up almost to let the other off the hook when people start thinking that it's them who's the killer.
Right, and that part, looking at it or watching it now, it's like, what the fuck? You were just running for your life and you're hiding in your bedroom after you just made fun of all these female characters who just run up the stairs instead of running out the front door.
Yeah, she
Um,
does it.
exactly, exactly. She runs in her room, she's trying to dial 911, doesn't work. This is another part where I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna type in "white woman in trouble" from Scary Movie, forgetting that this is Scream.
I guess they
But
originally typed in something something Elm Street, but they didn't have that shot in the movie.
that would have been cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, once she was about to type whatever, all of a sudden Ghostface is gone, and then Billy comes in. And then once he drops like his cell phone or whatever, she freaks out and then runs out of her door. How do you not know Ghostface is just not waiting by the stairs or whatever? I know you think it's him, but wouldn't it click in your head like, oh, couldn't there be two?
No, I don't think it clicks in anybody's head that it's two people at all. I think to all of our characters within the movie, they're all believing that it's one person. So she's sure that it's Billy in that moment. Because too, this is like mid 90s. It's probably rare for somebody, especially a high schooler, to have a cell phone.
I don't know. Watching it now, it made me mad thinking like, okay, well, I'd be afraid to leave my room at that point. Yeah, I am under the assumption that this guy who is her boyfriend is the killer, but Ghostface was literally right outside her bedroom door. So I don't know. And then it was just funny when she ran down the stairs and you have Dewey's dumbass holding up the mask randomly when she opened the door. Such a
Yeah.
cool bit. I love that part. I love that guy. He's awesome in here.
Does he get startled by Sydney when she opens the door too?
Yeah, like she screams and then he screams. Everybody screams.
I do really like David Arquette's choice to play Dewey, like pretty inept, a little underqualified, inexperienced. I guess they wanted that character to be good at his job and very serious and like qualified to be going after Ghostface, but it's very endearing watching him kind of just be new to the force basically, and nobody takes him too seriously, and he hasn't really earned the ability to be taken seriously just yet.
Yeah, all of his scenes, he's doing something that is very kid like just kind of jumping forward. He is talking to the sheriff. The sheriff is smoking while Dewey is eating an ice cream
Mhm.
cone.
At the same time, anytime he took a drag of the cigarette, he would lick the ice cream cone. I really loved that touch. I thought that was so funny.
Yeah, and times when he's trying to put his sunglasses on, he kind of fumbles with it a little bit. So even with that, it's like, damn, can't even put on your sunglasses regularly. So all of his scenes in here, you see how uh, he's trying to carry himself as someone who is a man of the law, should be respected, possibly even feared a little bit, but he's not at all. He's just a cute ass character. I love him.
Yeah, Dewey is incredible. I'm really excited to see how his character develops across the movies that he's in. I'm not sure how many movies that they keep him around for, but I'm really liking him a lot. But basically, right after this scene, they locks Billy up. They are just sure that he's the one who did it. And Sydney goes to stay with Tatum, Dewey, and their family. And Sydney gets a call from Ghostface while they're there. A good example of when one of them starts to get implicated, the other will let them off the hook in some way. one detail I didn't notice that I picked up on from the commentaries, they keep Dewey off screen in another room that whole time, and right when the phone call ends, he comes out to kind of make the audience think that Dewey could be the killer as well. So that's another thing that I wonder if people in theaters were wondering, is this Dewey? Like how much of a question mark this Ghostface guy was to audiences in 1996.
Right. They were trying to throw like a red herring there to just, which I didn't realize too until this time around as well, because I did hear that fact. Okay, well, why was he hiding? And then all of a sudden, once you don't hear him anymore and you hear like the the line click or the phone call end, um, all of a sudden Dewey comes out and he's winded too. So it's like, okay, well, could it have been him? And then his goofy self just answers it and is like, hello. And then they just transition to the next scene where you hear a Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, or is it Bad Seed or Bad Seeds? And then they're singing Red Right Hand, which technically becomes like the theme of this franchise, which is like a chef's kiss in a way. Um, but yeah,
Sing it for
they
us.
no, I'm gonna sing it for the next episode. I need to prepare my vocal cords for that because my allergies are yet again beating my ass. All this pollen everywhere.
I feel your pain. I didn't quite catch the song that you're talking about though. I'm a bit disappointed, but I'll look up a clip of it before I go into Scream 2 so I'm prepared.
But yeah, then they go into the little segment where, Tatum and Sidney, they're eating breakfast, and you see a news clip of this guy named Cotton Weary. He was the one that supposedly raped and killed Sidney Prescott's mother.
Played by Liev Schreiber of the X-Men franchise. People would probably know him from most likely, but I I I was just like, was he just a small actor at this time to where he just got that role?
Yeah, they have him in there for that little close up when he's in the car, and then that's it. So, which is funny because when I first watched this years ago, I never paid attention to that part. So once well, a quick spoiler for part two, once he is reappears in part two, I was like, well, wait, who the fuck is this guy? So I had to rewatch the first one again to figure that out.
Yeah, Wes Craven said that he's bringing him back at like the very end of the commentary. But one thing I did appreciate when he said that is he said he handles part 2 with a lot of love and care. So I liked that a lot.
Yeah, so Dewey comes in and tells Sydney, well, basically, Billy's not our guy. So, this guy's still out there, but, we're just going to keep a close eye on you, essentially. Um, it's funny when they go to school because she is obviously on edge with everything. And you have these fucking students in there wearing the ghost face costume and running around the school all crazy, like throwing their hands up everywhere and just scaring her. It's just like, where the fuck is like a teacher who's gonna put an end to this? It's great that they get expelled by the principal, but it was funny.
I was about to say Henry Winkler comes in and puts a stop to this. Fucking the Fonz himself. I love Henry Winkler so much. He does a lot of comedy. Recently, like Barry, he might have got some Emmy nominations for that, but I didn't know he was in this movie at all. It sucked to see him die because I was like, I guess he's not coming back for the sequels. He said he really wanted to be in this movie, and the studio asked him to go uncredited because they didn't want his name to take away attention from the other cast members, the younger up and comers, which is weird because Courtney Cox, I feel like, might have been a name at that point. Maybe that's not the case. I wasn't really that old around that time, but yeah, I love seeing Henry Winkler come in and rain fire. He's getting aggressive with these scissors. He calls the kids shits a lot. they actually got banned from filming at the high school they were filming at because a small community on the school board was, protesting a lot of the content within the script that the students say, a lot of, like, the talk about murder, but also Henry Winkler's character was one of them because he's kind of, like, quote, unquote, "foul-mouthed" for a principal, but yeah, I liked seeing it. Henry Winkler, gotta love it.
I mean, realistically, I love his scene in here because he is just destroying them, those 2 students, and at that point, just throwing professionalism out the door, like, "Dude, have some fucking common sense, have some respect. 2 of your fellow students were just fucking killed, and this is what you guys do? Like, no, fuck you guys, I'm gonna expel both of you." And it's cool because at that moment, no one's going to believe these 2 kids, like, "Well, oh, yeah, he swore at us." No one's in that room, so they can't tell, and it is fucked up because later on, since he is dead, it's like, well, does anyone now know that these kids were expelled, or did this guy have enough time to, fill out that paperwork for it, whatever. I don't know. It was cool seeing that because you don't expect a teacher, or not a teacher, just any faculty member to react like that. So the fact that he did showed, he's on edge because this happened to 2 of his students in his school, and then you have little shits running around like this, like, so insensitive. So yeah, they deserved what they got.
The expulsion? The kids didn't die though, right?
They didn't. They should have,
Yeah.
but they didn't.
So you're saying there's a chance they might come back for the sequel. They're the new Ghostface duo. It could turn out that they're the most important characters ever, having seen the way fucking Star Wars wrapped up their saga and Mission Impossible wrapped up their thing. I mean, everybody's important apparently to every storyline, no matter how big or small the characters are. Blah blah blah. Yeah,
I
I don't
mean,
know. So they could turn out to be like the fathers of Courtney Cox or something.
there is one film that has a very strange twist to it. I won't spoil which one it is. Listeners might know which one I'm talking about, but to me, it didn't make sense. It was just such a bogus way to end that film. And I've even heard rumors that, that killer might be in Scream 7. I don't know. If he is, it's going to be kind of weird. They better make it like a good reveal or something, but we'll get to that once we get to that movie. Um,
Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in Scream 7 considering like they fired one of their lead actresses and then their other lead actress left and then I think the directors also left too. It seems like Paramount's made a lot of bad choices behind the scenes when it comes to the Scream franchise, and it seems like it may start to bite them a little bit going forward. I think they had people with a plan, they had characters that were part of that plan, and it seems like they kind of lost a lot of that, unfortunately. But who knows? Who knows what is going on now with the production of Scream 7? I don't know if they're filming or if they've even found a new director or what the deal is. But I think it's supposed to come out next year.
oh shit. Okay, I didn't know that.
Scream 7 is apparently going to be directed by Kevin Williamson,
I did hear that.
going to be his second movie he's directed. Gotta say, usually not a good sign when they bring the writer in to be a director. They did that with David S. Goyer in the Blade series. He directed Blade Trinity. It usually kind of means the studio is like, we don't really have a guy, but the writer's familiar enough with the material, so we'll give him a crack at it. I don't know. Maybe he could have a good vision. That's not a big vote of confidence for me. God damn it, Paramount. Why can't you fucking manage your shit over there? That's why you had to merge with Skydance, because you can't fucking manage your own studio. So Tom Cruise is working for Warner Brothers right now. J.J. Abrams isn't over there anymore. Come on, Paramount.
So yeah, everyone is, kind of freaking out. Well, Sydney, she's hiding in a bathroom after she has a little encounter with Billy actually. He's released from jail and she's thinking, "Okay, it's not you." You end up finding out, she doesn't want to be intimate or anything with him because she's still mourning the loss of her mother, and he's basically telling her, move on, my mom left too. So fucking shitty to say to someone who lost a relative, especially that being their mother.
I really did enjoy the writing in that moment though, where he was like, "Okay, yeah, that's a bad analogy." It it worked for me. Billy isn't the he doesn't have the most comforting touch, it seems. I really do enjoy though that sometimes it seems obvious that he's the killer, and other times it just seems like a guy who just fucking says the wrong thing and does the wrong thing all the time and just can't get it together.
So then she hides in the bathroom. Well, not hides. At first, she just goes in the bathroom, but then she hears people talking about her. So then she goes to hide in the bathroom. These girls are trash talking her and her mom. Once they leave, she comes out and someone is whispering her name. And then that's when you see some boots drop to the ground. You see the material of the Ghostface costume. He just jumps out of the bathroom
The
stall.
cloak, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then she, like, slides on the ground under him to leave the bathroom, and she runs out of the school, I'm assuming. There's a faculty member right there who sees her run out. She typically they bitch like, "Oh, no running in the halls, blah, blah, blah," but it's like, you see her, she's fucking scared out of her mind. Did anyone bother to go in that bathroom to check why she ran out of there or something? Because depending on who was in there, they could have fucking cracked the case right then and there on who the killer is.
Yeah, but they just assume that she's just some Looney Tune running around the school, just like, that's just her deal. She is almost getting murdered constantly. One thing before we get like too far away from the school, I did kind of enjoy that their janitor is Wes Craven dressed as Freddy Krueger.
Oh yeah, that's right. Once that she dips out of the school, you get the initial interaction between Gail Weathers and Dewey Riley. So she's trying to, poke at him to get information on the story going on, and he is, you know, getting a little shy because he's working and he obviously shouldn't be sharing certain information. But she sees, I think I could work my charm with this guy. So let me, kind of boost his ego, talk to him a little bit. She's probably vibing with him for real too. And you start to see their on-set chemistry take over, and
Yeah.
then yeah, just like sparks are flying between them.
Yeah, I really enjoy her flirtatious nature with him, how she's like, "Oh, my demographic is really like 11 through 24-year-olds," and he's like, "I'm 25," and she's like, "Damn, I just missed you." And at the end, she's like, he makes a reference to the show, and she's like, "So you do watch it?" And he was like, "I maybe 25 now, but I was 24 for a whole year." And I thought that was, again, it's a very written, like scripty kind of line, but I really enjoyed it. Their dynamic is so cute.
Yeah, those lines, they just work because even watching it again for this time, for this episode, I had never understood what that phrase meant before until I watched it now. I was like, "Oh, okay." So, yeah, I it just works for as scripted as it is. It works a lot. But yeah, all the students are released early because the city is issuing a curfew. So Stu comes out, talks to Sydney and Tatum, saying, "Oh, I'm gonna have a house party. Bring some stuff. Everyone's gonna come." You see the Fonz get killed in his murder scene. That's when they do show Wes Craven as the janitor Fred. And then they cut to Sydney and Tatum talking on her front porch about, everything going on, and then what rumors were being spread about her mom and her murder case. So she's just Sydney's saying, she's pissed off at Gail because she's the one spreading the rumors. And Tatum is telling her, well, the rumors kind of go farther back about your mom's promiscuity or whatever. And you see like Sydney's hurt because her friend might be believing that, but then it's starting to click in her head. Okay, well, if the person that I accuse Cotton Weary isn't the person who killed my mom, then her killer is still out there. And another way they reference, the movie being aware of themselves, Tatum is just like, "Oh, don't go there. You sound like some Wes Carpenter film." Just butchering his name,
Yeah.
but combining it. It was cool.
I So the idea, at least in Sydney's head, is that Liev Schreiber's character raped and murdered her mom. But it seems like, and what Gale Weathers is kind of pointing to, is that her mom was cheating on her dad with a couple different guys that kind of comes into play too later in the movie. But that Liev Schreiber was someone that she was having an affair with, and then she was murdered by presumably Ghostface, this guy who's going around killing everybody else currently. And so Liev Schreiber got put away wrongly because it wasn't a rape murder. He just happened to have sexual relations with her before she was murdered by Ghostface.
Yeah, so that whole story starts to at least tie in, why she is feeling this way. Obviously, you losing your mom is painful enough, but her mom was murdered. And then, she saw her mom in a certain light. Just, this woman who raised me, you love her. But then you have everyone thinking and saying all of these horrible things about her that is just like a whole different lifestyle about your mom that you don't know about. So obviously, you don't want to believe that. But then you have news reporter Gail Weathers spinning her whole story on it and defending the guy that Sydney is accusing. So that has to be in itself a whole other level of stress to deal with.
Yeah, but and so she inevitably does kind of come around though. She has an interaction earlier where I think it was earlier where she punches Gale Weathers, and then
Yeah.
later, yeah, and then later comes and talks to her and kind of tells her like, maybe there is something to what Gale is saying. Maybe I did falsely accuse someone. At least I think that's what had happened in that scene. But,
Yeah.
yeah, she does kind of come around a little bit to Gale's perspective, it seems.
Yeah, so then she's, thinking of all of that. Her and Tatum are going to get ready for the party. Then you go to the video store. Everyone and their mom is in there trying to rent all the horror movies.
Yeah, I've never seen a video store that packed before.
Right? Exactly. And it just brought me back to the days of fucking Blockbuster and Family Video because you have all the tapes out and then you have the actual or the case of the tape and then the actual tape behind it.
Where did you go?
I went to Family Video once we found a Family Video. We were going to Blockbuster, but they were expensive. But yeah, it was cool just seeing all the like a lot of the movies they were being rented because you could see some of them were flat against the shelves, but then you see just a few of them still had their tapes behind them. So everyone's in there getting prepped up for the curfew, and Stu's talking to Randy a little bit. Randy admits that he has a thing for Sydney and is then saying, it's probably Billy who's the killer. Stu's trying to throw him off, saying, it's probably her dad. No one has found him. So, what is he doing? And Randy's like, he's probably dead. And then everyone's looking at them like, You're getting a little loud in here. And then that's when Billy confronts him and is just like, okay, well, you're probably the killer if you're fucking over here accusing me of that. And then you get that weird little show of affection. Oh my God, sorry. Jesus. You get that weird little show of affection from Stu playing with Randy's ear. That whole scene was just so fucking uncomfortable to watch.
In regard to the dad, I think they do mention him being like tied up with his teeth kicked in or something like that. And they're kind of close to his fate a little bit at the end. His teeth aren't kicked in, his mouth is duct taped, but he is tied up. Then they reference the dad being like a red herring, like it's not the dad. The dad's always a red herring, and this is one of a couple times where they're talking to each other, but in a way they're kind of talking to the audience. Like, hey, here are the typical horror tropes. Here are the things you expect. We're gonna do some of them, but we're also gonna try to subvert them as we're doing it, or make you think we're gonna do it and then swerve at the last second. It's kind of them setting up what we're going to get later in the movie.
Exactly. Then they bring you to the house party. In Stu's house, fucking big ass farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. What the hell do these kids' parents do to afford these places of residence? Like, my God, I like his house a hell of a lot more than Sydney's. What did you think of his house in this location?
I thought it was a really solid and beautiful house. I actually have some details about it that are a little bit sad. So just warning to our listeners, you might get kind of sad, but I guess the house was originally built by an elderly couple, and shortly after they had built it, one of them had passed away, and then a month later the other passed away. So their
Mhm.
three kids just had this big house and were like, we don't really know what to do with it. So then when they were location scouting, they came across the house and were just like, hey, I mean, you could let us use it for your movie if you wanted something to do with it. So they let him use it for the movie. It was kind of cool. And don't let me forget, but I want to go into a detail about the mask a little bit too before we end the episode.
Okay. Yeah, and isn't his house or the house that they use like an Airbnb now? I think it is. You can pay to stay there, which I really want to do.
Oh, is it in California?
It is in California, I believe. Yeah, it's in California.
Yeah, it seems worth it. I mean, if you can, I'd say go for it. Try to Airbnb at the Scream Murder House. You can recreate the kitchen scene with all the people that you go with.
I know, right? I'll be
Hmm.
scaring myself like, "Oh my god, this is where this happened. This is where this happened." And then I'll hear like the house settling and just freak my own self out. Yeah, that'll be a good time. So, yeah,
Hmm.
everyone shows up at the house party and you see Gail and her cameraman Kenny. They also show up. They're trying to be sneaky, just making sure no one sees them. But Dewey pops up and talks to Gail. You see he's all excited
Is
that
cool with these high schoolers drinking.
yeah, exactly. He's acting goofy with them too, or not goofy, but just yeah, just trying to be laid back. You see that Gail puts a like a little hidden camera so she can just watch everyone. That is so fucked up to do. You're like recording some minors here for your fucking job. Like, ew, no.
Yeah, when you put it that way, it does sound pretty fucked up. I didn't think anything of it, but that is I mean,
I mean,
and Dewey is
imagine.
letting her do this.
I don't think he knows about it, but because she
Mm,
does it like very sneaky, like, but imagine if everyone dipped out and instead of Randy being the one watching TV there, you got a couple doing like their Netflix and chill session, and then these fuckers are
yeah,
recording it. Anything could have happened.
that's illegal now.
Exactly, exactly. But no, she needs her story. So then they cut into what is it? Tatum's scene. Like Stu asked her to go get him a beer.
Mhm.
She goes to the garage to get him one and then gets locked in the garage. Tries to press the large garage door opener to open, but then it closes and then Ghostface is there. And then again, another time, she thinks it's Randy. So again, I'm thinking, I
Yeah.
wonder how they feel about that. You know, they're doing all this fucking work and Randy's getting all the credit.
I think they're fine. They're like, "Oh, they aren't even thinking it's me right now. They think it's this
True.
other guy." It's easy for them to pin it on Randy because later, Stu at the very end is quick to be like, "Randy's the killer," and you have the two of them pointing the finger back and forth at each other. And
Yeah, true.
this this Tatum death that we're about to get into as well. This is another thing. The MPAA made them cut most of it, so we see very little of her actual death, which makes me feel bad for the fucking effects workers who probably worked very hard on making her head get crushed.
Even when I watched that first or that scene the first time, it freaked me out because I thought like, oh, it just crushed like her stomach because I thought she was halfway out, but once you see like her head is getting crushed, ew. So, yeah, they the MPA were being a bunch of bitches with that. um yeah.
Yeah. It's very reminiscent too of a moment that happens in the new Final Destination.
Ooh, what part are you talking about? I
And
can't remember.
it's involving a garbage truck.
Oh, right, right, right. Okay, yeah. I was thinking more of Child's Play 3 with that watching that.
Except Child's Play 3 was lame. You didn't see shit when Child's Play did it, and it was like
I
his
know,
arm
I
or
know,
something. Child's Play
I
3
know.
sucks.
It really does. Let's not go
Final
there.
Destination Bloodlines is good. Scream is good. Child's Play 3 sucks.
But then, unfortunately she gets killed. At least she tried to put up a fight, a good one too. And then they show Sydney trying to leave and then Billy pops up and he gives Stu the most ugh, awkward stare. He's like smiling at Stu and like raising his eyebrows like, okay, yeah, you know what's going on. And Stu lets them go upstairs to his parents' room. That whole interaction should have let me know the first time I watched it, like, okay, for sure, these fuckers are in on it together. But of course it didn't until the ending.
Either that or they're like secret lovers of some sort. You
Probably.
get Yeah, you get kind of like homoerotic vibes from these two. But yeah, Billy and Sydney go upstairs to have sex. They, subvert the virgin trope that these movies all set up, which I feel like this movie does earn this moment. Unlike a lot of other horror movies, they don't really earn their sex scene, and we don't really get an actual sex scene. We don't see any nudity, really. It's, again, tastefully done. It also feels like kind of weird knowing you're watching, even though they're adult actors, they're playing high schoolers, so it would be kind of weird, like demanding we see nudity or something titillating. That would be kind of odd.
Right.
But then after their big sex scene, Stu is wait, no, everybody before actually we get to what happens with Stu and Billy, we keep cutting back to the kids watching their movie again and they're explaining the rules while they're watching Halloween, right?
Yeah, I wanted
I
to get into that.
Yeah, I love that the Halloween score is now just making its way into Scream, and there are movies within Scream that are punctuated and emphasized with the Halloween score. I thought that was a really cool use of that movie playing in the background. I kind of loved it. I don't know if I've really seen that be done before, where the score from a different movie that's playing on TV is bleeding into the movie that we're watching, and now it's like a diegetic horror score.
Yeah, so I think that made this movie even more difficult for me to watch the first time around because again, I was so scared to watch Halloween because of the score. So you hear it in the background here and there, and even the kill scene that they show from Halloween, hated that one too, just because of it being a jump scare. So it intensified this movie for me the first time I watched it.
There's
Um,
a specific moment where Dewey walks in the house gun drawn, and it's the actual, like, "Ba-na-na, dun,"
mhm.
it's like
Yeah, yeah.
a full section of him walking through the house to, like, the most tense moment of the Halloween score where Michael's, like, on the loose looking for Jamie. It's really, if the score bothered you as a kid, I could see it really having an effect on you, especially in, like, that moment, because Dewey too, his character's scared and he plays it pretty scared too. It's a really effective and well done moment.
Yeah, even that part where he's searching the house, at that point, no one is there. And, he's just there on his own, but you can definitely feel his fear while he's walking in there, just looking around while the score is playing from Halloween. And then back to when, Randy, or they're watching the Halloween film, it's a bunch of them still at the party. It was funny just because Randy was explaining all of the rules of, okay, this is how you're going to survive a horror movie. You can't have sex, you can't do drugs, and you can't say, I'll be back. And they are breaking every single one of those. So, another way this movie makes it aware of itself. But you end up thinking, like, oh, is that really, the rules of a horror movie and like the survival of it? So, because later on, this film doesn't even follow its own rules. So I like that they have those little like bits of information in here.
I like that Stu's the one who says, "I'll be back too," and the way he plays it, he's
Hmm.
in on what's happening, like, obviously now having watched the movie, but it's very well executed, I think, them going through these tropes and who they have going through the tropes and who they have saying what in the moment.
Then Sydney and Billy, they're, getting dressed and she's just asking him questions. Okay, who did you call when you were in jail? And he's trying to ask her, what do I have to do to prove to you that I'm not a killer? And then Ghostface just pops in, stabs him a few times, and then starts chasing Sydney. At that point, everyone has cleared out of the house because who the fuck called Stu's house to let him know that the principal was killed?
Yeah, I don't know who made the call, but yeah, they just found out the principal died, and everyone's like, "What? We gotta go see," or whatever, because they found his body somewhere or whatever, and
Yeah.
everybody just bails. Nobody notices Tatum's body hanging from the garage too. I was like, "Oh,
Right?
people are gonna notice at this point," and nobody notices. It's just irresponsible teenagers.
This fucking idiots. Yeah, no one even notices the news van right there. Well, they knew
Mhm.
that Gale was there. Never mind.
It was a good way to clear the house, though. They said, like, that was a writing issue they had, was how do we
Hmm.
get the house empty for the events of the final act?
So yeah, Randy's just there by himself watching the rest of the Halloween movie. Gail and Dewey, they're walking on the road like arm in arm with each other, being flirty and everything. And then the kids zoom by them, almost hit them, and then they end up fucking like falling into this brush of trees right there. And then, they have their moment. They share a kiss with each other. And then Dewey's like, "Sorry, I'm on duty." Like, dude, you already kissed her. Like, why not?
Yeah, is that predatory behavior?
No, because she was the one. Well, wasn't she the one that kind of like moved inward to kiss him, or was he the one to move in and kiss her?
I don't know. From my mind, they ended up on top of each other, but am I thinking of Scary Movie right now?
No, because that's what happened.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact events of the kiss, but I don't know.
But yeah, then they find Sydney's dad's car just right in that brush of trees. And they're like, "Oh fuck, well, let's get back to the house, why is he here?" More so like, what the fuck? Why would you ask why is he here or what's he doing here? Clearly his car is hidden in there. Well, I guess they can that's another way of them thinking, oh, he's probably hiding here.
They coulda referenced Misery there.
That too, that too. I'm over here thinking they crashed his car in here to hide it, but no, clearly that's not it. So yeah, everyone has cleared out of the house. They have Randy's cool scene where the watching Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween, and he's trying to say like, behind you, Jamie, like you're gonna
Mhm.
turn around, and then
I love
Ghostface
that
is actually
moment.
behind him. I know he's so oblivious to it, obviously, but then fucking Sydney's running outside, and Ghostface hears her, so Randy is spared at that moment. Yeah, Sydney had done like a whole chase sequence with Ghostface in the house, was able to like jump out of the fucking attic window and finds Tatum's dead body, and then yeah, just trying to, run for her life and everything. Everyone is getting killed at this moment.
I must say, I find Sydney's, uh, encounters with and confrontations with Ghostface to be really exciting. I think they're the strongest action in the movie when she falls out of that window and lands on, I think it's like a boat that's maybe covered, or
Hmm.
she lands on something. I like jumped for a second and was really glad that she ended up landing. I get very invested when she's in the car and Ghostface has the keys and he like dips down, like the face that she's making. I'm so locked into everything Sydney's doing when she's confronted with Ghostface. I hope the sequels really hold to that, like the power of these two coming face to face. One thing that we do get in this moment too. So she, after she gets out of the house, ends up in Gail's news van, and the this so earlier in the movie we kind of get an example of the fact that there's a delay in this camera. We see them having a conversation inside, then we cut to outside the van, outside with Gail and her camera guy, and we're seeing a little bit of a conversation we got already. At first I was like, oh, that's weird editing, but then I realized in the same moment that they realized it, this camera has a bit of a delay and Ghostface is already out of the house when we think that he originally was about to kill, uh I keep forgetting their
Randy.
names. Randy. Yeah, when we think he's about to kill Randy and then this camera guy gets his throat slit. And another thing the MPAA made them cut, which Wes Craven was talking about, he said when he gets his throat slit, it lingers on the cut a little bit, and the camera guy gives Ghostface just a look. And he said the look he gives him was a very human look that is lost because of the MPAA. But I do like that we were
Tragic.
able to get him. It is, yeah. But I do really like that we were able to get him signaling to Sydney like, "Hey, close the door, close the door."
Hmm.
He seemed like a good guy. He calls
Hmm.
Gale Weathers like a goddess bitch at one point. He she he gets happy when she thinks she's going to be a genuine person, but then she's only concerned about her book sales and she lightly slaps him.
Slaps him.
I like, yeah, I liked having him around. He seemed like a good guy.
He was funny. I liked him. Even the part where they show up at Sydney's house when Ghostface tried to kill her initially. She gets out of the car and she sees everything, so she's like, "Jesus, the camera, hurry." And you just hear him say, "My name isn't Jesus." It's just such a funny little
I
line
like
to
that.
throw in there. Yeah. At this point, like everyone's getting killed. Even like Gail and Dewey get back to the house. He's trying to see where everyone is at. Gail finds blood in her van and then sees that Kenny was dead on top of her van. Nearly runs over Sydney and then ends up crashing into a tree herself. Sydney tries to run back to the house, finds Dewey coming out of the house, and he's stabbed in the back. There's a part where she's
I
hiding in.
loved the way he acted that too. David Arquette when he's stabbed. Sorry to cut you off. It was just this moment is really what there's always a moment in a movie that I feel like I'm truly grabbed, and David Arquette walking out of the house, and then it's revealed I think he's like Sidney, and then it's revealed that
Mhm.
he's stabbed and he stumbles and falls to the ground. There's something about his behavior, that shot when I was talking about that movies that devolve into madness, that is the moment where I was like, this has truly become fucking madness. Like, this is out of control. And that's where I really grew a love for this movie that I didn't have. It was that exact shot, that exact moment where David Arquette goes down. I loved it.
Right, because the guy that, everyone does like, they like his character and, just he's supposed to be the one to make sure everyone is safe even though not that many people buy it. He looks like he was killed. So now you're just like, fuck, she's by herself now. No one's going to be able to help her. She has a little bit with Ghostface while she's trying to find safety in Dewey's car, but then Randy pops up. No, I think Randy popped up when Gale was in the van and she like beats him with a phone or something. Sidney is able to run back to the house, and then Randy and Stu pop up and they're both trying to like get her to shoot the other one with Dewey's gun. She can't decide who's the killer and who isn't, so she just locks herself in the house. I mean, what other choice do you have at that point? You don't know who to trust, and both of them are just trying to, for lack of a better word, manipulate you to kill the other person.
I trust Randy more than I trust Stu because I've seen Randy with Ghostface in the same room on camera. So immediately, Randy's got a little bit more to his story than Stu. I haven't seen Stu and Ghostface in the same room. I've seen Randy and Ghostface in the same room.
That's true, but she doesn't know that. Well, yeah, she does know that. She saw it,
Yeah, she was there.
obviously. Y Yeah, never mind. Well, she makes some interesting decisions in this film, in this franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I did enjoy it. Who do you think sold their case better, Stu or Randy?
I don't know, like, I feel like Stu did more just because of how out there he reacts to things, like how you were saying he,
He's more
gestures.
charismatic.
Yeah, he does a lot of,
Yeah.
like, talking with his arms and his hands, like, Randy, I don't think he was a good scared character in that part, but yeah, now that you mention it, she should have just fucking believed Randy. And but then what how would have that reveal been if she found out that he was the killer first? Because once she's hiding in the house, you have Billy tumbling down the stairs, showing that he's alive. So you think, oh,
Yeah.
okay, well, she's okay. Now she's not alone. They let Randy in, and then he's like, well, man, Stu's flipped out. Like, he's gone mad. And then Billy turns around and quote psycho, like, we all go a little mad sometimes, and then shoots Randy. Poor Randy. Didn't do shit. And he's getting his ass beat by everyone and getting shot as well. Poor guy.
Yeah, I felt bad for Randy in that moment. But basically, yeah, this is when Stu and Billy fully kind of reveal themselves. Stu, watching it, I was like, those didn't look like he was actually stabbed. And that was kind of right. It was just corn syrup. No
Mhm.
knife penetrated him.
Mhm.
And yeah, they basically reveal everything to Sydney right then and there. They make their way into the kitchen and kind of corner her. This is where it gets, yeah, kind of weird, kind of sexual. They start going into talking about Sydney's mom and what is it? Billy's like she couldn't close her legs like Sharon Stone, and then Matthew Lillard's like, but she's no Sharon Stone. And it's like
Yeah.
such a he's like got spit coming out of his mouth. It's like this dude just fucking lost it. Like, yeah, it's such a cool and effective turn for these characters. I my very first time watching it, I didn't buy it, but I really love how weird these characters become. And like I said, it plays almost like they're secret lovers in a way. There is something like very sexual about their act of killing. I know I have mentioned it before on a different episode, but like the penetration of a knife being a very sexual type of thing and being read in horror as almost like sexual act from these killers. It's very violating in a way. And this movie kind of takes that and gives the scene very like weird sexual undertones in my opinion.
It does. And then you end up finding out that, Billy's motive for all of this was because Sydney's mom was having an affair with his dad. And that is why his mom ultimately left both of them. And Stu didn't even know that. Like, he was in it for just, the
Mhm.
game of killing everybody. So, yeah, just all of that tension in the air. I do agree with you on that, and just the way fucking Stu goes just off the rails with his acting in here and his ad-libbing. Let's just get to that part. Like him and Billy, they're trying to sell, like, okay, they pull her dad out. They had him tied up throughout the
Yeah.
whole fucking movie. And this poor guy, he's been in there all damn weekend pretty much, or however long it's been, and doesn't know what the fuck is going on, doesn't know why this is happening. His daughter's getting deflowered upstairs that night, and then now is finding out, okay, they're about to frame me for my wife's murder and kill my daughter, and I'm just tied up here. And then,
They're about to frame him as being Ghostface
yeah.
entirely too. They like plant the little speaker device in him that they
Hmm.
reveal when they're going through this whole spiel. I think they might be putting their cell phones on him. Yeah, they're making it seem like
Hmm.
he's been behind all of this.
Yeah, that's their grand plan of everything. And then they try to sell it by saying, oh, we're going to be the ones that were left for dead, but we survive. So they take turns stabbing each other. And it's just funny seeing how Stu reacts to it. He
It
just
was
goes
so hard to
crazy.
watch.
It was hard to watch, just like you know what to expect just on screen, but just thinking about it, like, fuck, you're just letting someone stab you right now.
Yeah, I was watching this a couple nights ago with my girlfriend, and when that moment was happening, I was like, "Is it weird that I kind of feel bad for Stu?" Like,
No.
yeah, it just Matthew Lillard really sells all of this, and I do really like to. This movie is coming out in a time, especially like the late '90s, early 2000s. Censorship was such a big thing. The Clinton administration, especially, I remember hearing stories about them really cracking down on censorship in media. And this is a time where a lot of people were pointing at horror movies and saying, are these things responsible for why teenagers or people commit horrific acts? And I do like that this movie is kind of looking that in the face and presenting it in front of audiences at a time where people are like, are horror movies this influential? And this whole time, all of these people know horror movies. All of these characters know the tropes of horror movies. They're all so aware, and I mean, they even call out themselves, we're not influenced like this. It just by we're not influenced by horror. It just makes us a bit more creative. But I do really like that in a time where this is such a sensitive area and people are like, "Oh, horror movies, do they corrupt our children?" This movie is presenting that dead in the face like, "Hey, here's a movie about how horror has permeated our society and is in the lives of our children and is in front of the youth of America right now." And they're watching it and they're taking notes from it, and not even in a bad way though. It is honestly more for survival.
Yeah, they do explain that a lot in that short scene, and they kind of go back to that in part 2 as well. We'll get to that when we get there. So their whole plan, they're just trying to, hash it out, and then Gale pops up and stole the gun that they had right there, the Stu's gun. She tries to shoot Billy, but he tells her all the safety's on. So he ends up like kicking her against like this railing outside. Cute little devastating moment because you think she's about to die along with Dewey right there because she falls on him. But
Mhm.
then Stu sees that Sydney is gone and so is her dad. How did Sydney drag her dad into the bathroom without them hearing? And she did it so quickly too. But yeah, she's calling the house line, and poor Stu, he's like coughing up so much
Yeah.
blood and it's just like, man, I'm hurting right now. So it's cool because of how he starts to steal the show with this scene.
And this is where he's really starting to ad lib too. When the gun is missing and Courtney Cox has it, and he's like, Houston, we have a problem. That's ad
Mhm.
libbed. There's the moment where Billy throws the phone at him. That was an accident. He was supposed to throw it at the table, but the
Mhm.
phone stuck to his hand and hit him in the head. And
Mhm.
Matthew Lillard stayed in character and was like, "You threw the fucking phone at me," or something
It's like, you
like
fucking
that.
hit me with the phone, dick. That's so iconic.
That was great. The line where he's like, "My mom and dad are gonna be so
So
mad at
mad at
me."
me.
That's ad libbed. And then the last one I took note of is where he hops on Sydney. Is like, I always had a thing for you, Sid. That was ad libbed. So this guy, every like iconic line this character is known for basically came from Matthew Lillard. He like injected this final sequence with so much life. I mean, he's a gem. He really is. You couldn't have had this ending in the way that it is without Matthew Lillard.
I love all of the scenes with him in it. He's goofy, he's just so crazy out there, and the fact that they made him one of the killers was such a fucking cool spin because it's like you were expecting it just by how he talked, his behavior, his boots, and then you're like, "Nah, he can't be it because, he's too stupid. He's just, whatever." But him being, just a crazy teenager, just helping out his friend and joining in on his sick, devious plan to kill people, he literally looked like he was in there for the fun of it. And then once it started becoming real, like, fuck, man, I'm hurting. I wasn't supposed to be hurting this much, whatever. And then it's starting to like hit him like, my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. I love all of his lines in there. Fucking amazing.
One thing too about Matthew Lillard's character specifically and his turn on Billy, it's almost like these characters they've been subjecting all of these other people to so much like pain and horrific things, but it's like they themselves have not been subjected to, on the other end of the violence, and it's almost like when they feel what it's like to actually have the knife insert in them, like something in them changes. But also from Wes Craven's perspective, what he said he was trying to go for is in this moment, Stu has always idolized Billy for his capability to commit all of these horrific acts. And in this moment, after Stu's been stabbed and is actually in pain, he's starting to kind of realize, oh, Billy isn't this person that I've been idolizing in this moment. Like, he's just as vulnerable. He doesn't really care about me, he doesn't have a plan. So Stu kind of like organically just makes this natural this turn against Billy, which I really I like how that ended up working out. Like there is something about that stab that does change Stu fundamentally for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, because you do see the way he looks at Billy is different because Billy's like, "Give me the knife," and he's just like, "No." And you could see like Stu. even in his eyes, it's just different because yeah, he's not looking at Billy. There was a part where he kind of hands him the gun, like in a
Like a presentational kinda
yeah,
way.
exactly. But now this time he doesn't even want to hand over the knife because he's like, no, if I do that, you're gonna stab me again, out of spite. So yeah, you can
Yeah.
definitely see that bleeding into it. And then when Stu or not Stu, Billy's like going crazy looking for Sidney, he gets distracted by the bathroom when this one scene of Halloween is playing. And then Sidney busts out in the Ghostface costume. We can start talking about the mask, but she stabs him with an umbrella. But then one of the times when she stabbed him, I guess she
Mhm.
missed the protective vest that he was wearing. So she actually stabbed him. So that scream that he made was real.
You could feel it. It looks like she hit him in the fucking collar.
Right? That was
Like,
painful to fucking watch.
almost the neck, because they said the mask was very hard to see out of. Yeah, these masks already existed before the movie, and they were a part of a line of masks at a Halloween store called Fantastic Faces, and the name of this mask was specifically the peanut-eyed ghost, but they changed it to Ghostface later on to make it sound a bit more scary, but it came in a bunch of assortments of colors. You could get in like orange, white. They originally wanted it in white, but one of the producers was like, "How about black? Black would look a bit more scary." But yeah, they wanted just something that anybody could buy at any store, and Bob Weinstein kept trying to get them to add fucking teeth to the mask, and thank God they didn't do that. But yeah, it could have turned out very differently. But yeah, just a little side detail about the mask. I thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is. I even remember one time in junior high, my history teacher, she made us do like a project every fucking month. I hated it. And then for Halloween, we were doing Day of the Dead, and my family had a bunch of masks around. So there was one that was like a wolf that I gave to my friend. This other girl that was in our group, she dressed up as like a pixie fairy or some stupid shit. So I was like, all right, whatever. And then I was setting something up and I had a mask that was like a version of the ghost face mask. And it's funny because as soon as I put it on and turned around, like everyone fucking gasped because they were all scared compared to the like wolf mask that I had my buddy wear. So yeah, that mask, very iconic. Everyone knows it. Just looking at it, you can freak out. So it's a good mask.
Yeah, I dig it. I've never actually owned or worn one like that before. I don't know if I ever will, but it's one of the most memorable parts of Halloween for me as a kid was seeing that ghost face mask just completely detached from Scream itself as a movie. It's very cool. Um, One thing I did want to shout out, we kind of went past it a little bit, but earlier on, Gale Weathers, when she pops in with the gun, she has a line that I really like and kind of foreshadows how the actual movie will end. But when she's got the gun pointed at him and she was like talking about, going through all the events of the movie, and she was like, Gale, journalist Gale Weathers saves the day. And then
Mhm.
Sydney's like, I like that ending. I don't know. I wish I remembered word for word what it was, but I really, really liked Gail and everything she had to say in that moment.
The news reporter left for dead comes to, stumbles upon you two dipshits or whatever, finds the gun, foils your plan, and saves the day. I know that's not word for word, but it's pretty close. I'm sure of that.
It's pretty close, closer than I got. Then Sydney's like, I like that ending.
Yeah.
It's
I didn't
awesome.
even think of that being like foreshadowing, but yeah, it is because
Mm.
what was it? Randy comes back, Billy punches him, and then she or wait, no. Stu comes back first. And
Yeah.
like yeah, like
They
Sydney's
have a
running away
chase
from
in the
Stu.
house.
Yeah, they have a full-on chase. That's when he's like, "Oh, I've always had a thing for you."
I gotta say too, I really like that the climax is nobody in the Ghostface costume. It's these two guys just fully exposed. I thought that was a cool route to take.
Yeah, that is. It makes it like you wanna say less scary because now you know who it is, but that makes it more, intense to watch because you're like, "Okay, it was like, the killers were just these 2 teenagers that we started to grow attached to a little bit." Um,
It makes it darker for me because
yeah.
it's like it's two people, your boyfriend and someone who was in your friend group, like people who you've known for a long time. They were probably at like her mom's funeral consoling her when all of that happened. And
Mhm.
now Stu's on top of her trying to kill her, being like, I always had a thing for you, Sid. It's very twisted.
Yeah, and even in the beginning when Randy was trying to say like, "Oh, did Stu go over and kill Casey Becker?" But Tatum was like, "No, Stu was at my house." So, okay, they were, doing their thing, and then Billy went to Sydney's house after to, try to stir up some fun between them. So it's like you guys just committed a brutal murder and then just went to your girlfriend's house and, you know, tried to do the devil's tango, or it did do it in Stu and Tatum's case. And yeah, definitely makes it more twisted because they weren't affected
Yeah.
negatively about that at all.
But so then after all of that, Sydney ends up dropping a TV on Stu's face. And part of me wonders if that's the last we'll see of him. We don't get a definitive, like, dead body. So a little bit of me is like, maybe we'll get more Matthew Lillard. I don't really know. But then after Stu's done, this is where. Is this the moment where Billy gets rammed with the umbrella and all of that?
No, that part happened already when I was explaining he got stabbed for real. He just
That happened before Stu dies?
yeah, he pops back up and punches Randy because Randy is alive and was talking to
Mhm.
Sydney and he's trying
It's
to
like, "Thank
choke
God I'm still a
Sydney.
virgin."
Yeah, yeah. Billy is now choking Sydney and then says, say hello to your mother, but she has the gross idea by putting her finger in his little wound hole right there in his chest.
I love that. I love that so much.
So he screams, he's about to stab her, but then Gail pops up and then shoots Billy. And then they have to shoot him one more time because Randy's like, hey, this is the
Gale
part where,
Weathers.
yeah, she comes to save the day.
Gale Weathers saves the day!
He comes back for one final scare. Billy like screams like a generic jump scare. And then yeah, Sydney's the one to administer the final bullet in his head. And then
They have one last jump scare.
you find out that Dewey's still alive because all the ambulances are there and they're pulling Dewey out on the stretcher.
I had a feeling when I was watching that, part of me was like, that feels like a reshoot, or like Dewey probably tested really well with audiences and they thought to themselves, okay, we need to have something to signal that they're still alive. But yeah, Wes Craven thought about that day of like, let's just get something to let the audiences know that he was alive. So it didn't even make it to test screenings. That was a Wes Craven like on set type of realization that they need to keep him alive.
Which was a great fucking thing because he is one of my favorite characters in here. Dewey, I love him. Love him to death.
That last shot too of Gale Weathers talking. So that's supposed to be sunrise. They filmed it. It's actually sunset. They had one shot to do it. It was their last day of filming at that location, and they wrote all that dialogue in the moment. They had one take to do it. They told Courtney Cox, "You have to nail it. You have to learn all this right now and get it." And they pulled it off, and they got it before the sun set, and they played it off as sunrise. I thought it was pretty cool. Again, this movie's like all the best movies are lightning in a bottle where things just come together and they're made with just people problem solving as opposed to the big studio budgets and money being thrown at problems.
That's such a cool fucking fact because looking at it now, it does I don't know how, but it does kind of look more like sunset instead
It
of
does.
sunrise. So, oh my god, I love that. I love that so much. But yeah, overall, this fucking movie is just amazing. What is your favorite kill scene in here? I want to have that be in all of our episodes, our favorite kill scene. What is yours?
All right, favorite kill scene?
Yeah.
I wish I knew this beforehand. I would have been better prepared. So if any of the deaths are open game, including Stu and Billy, I'm gonna go with Stu. That's my favorite death.
Really?
The TV to the face. Yeah. If he's even dead. I don't know, folks. I haven't seen the sequels.
Right? Yeah, I think I like Drew Barrymore's death the most just because of how much it
Mhm.
scared me when I first saw it and just insanely drawn out it was. They could have easily just like broke into her house, killed her, hung her well before her parents got home, but no, they wanted to toy with her and play this little cat and mouse game and then fucking ended up killing her and then hanging her. So, yeah, she has very intense scene to watch, but yeah, overall this movie is such a fucking classic.
The Drew Barrymore death is probably the objectively the best kill in the movie. It's the most iconic in the whole series, I'm pretty sure. It's the one that I'm the most familiar with from the outside looking in. So that's not a bad pick. I I really just loved Matthew Lillard in that final moment. So when you're saying the death scene, I'm imagining that whole last, like from the kitchen all the way to the TV, smashing his face and all the ad
Mhm.
lib stuff. I'm like lumping in there. But when it comes to execution and from a technical perspective and all around just an audience punch to the face, the Drew Barrymore one is probably the one that takes the cake.
Any final thoughts on the movie before we wrap up the episode?
I loved it. So I've watched it 3 times in total right now. The first time years ago and then 2 times in preparation for this podcast. And I truly like have become inspired by this movie. There's a movie that I've been working on in my own time, like a horror script that I've been writing and watching Scream. I didn't realize, I wasn't too familiar with it, so I didn't lift any ideas, but I didn't realize how indebted to Scream my idea actually is. And I have really started paying attention thinking what is this movie doing that really works? And I found it really inspiring. I have grown an attachment to it since we, in the past couple days. I think I'll be rewatching this often. I love the characters. I'm really excited to see them return. One thing that this movie and watching the commentary kind of put in my head a little bit was that a lot of people think that horror brings out some type of like grossness or some type of bad behavior in people. But this movie is kind of about how horror actually brings out fear in people. The reaction is fear, the reaction isn't violence. And I kind of really appreciate that there is a horror movie out there, even though it's, what, 30 years old we're approaching? Even though this movie's pretty old, I'm glad that there's something that exists and existed in the time that was kind of putting this in front of people's faces, especially coming from like a household where I did where we weren't allowed to watch horror. It really is nice seeing something where it's like, hey, this isn't evil and kids can enjoy it. There can be a takeaway, but the takeaway isn't necessarily violence. I originally was going to say I appreciate this movie more than I love it before I started these rewatches, but now I have a total change of heart and I really this is one of the best movies we've covered for the podcast, I think.
Yeah, it was necessary and just going forward. it's all going to be a fun ride. I say that for all the films, but yeah, Scream definitely a very popular franchise, and again, one that I truly, truly love. So, yeah, everyone just stay tuned for the next episode. We'll be covering Scream 2 next week. Don't forget to rate us 5 stars. Let us know what other movies you'd want us to cover. Just stay tuned. We got a lot of fun things coming up.
Yeah, leave us a 5-star rating maybe and say what you would like to hear us talk about. And, that is a very effective way. We will listen to the 5-star ratings if they, we'll let that sway us potentially. Won't throw off our schedule, but we'll listen. We'll really pay attention closely. But yeah, so hopefully you guys can do that for us.
We've been Morbid Curiosities.
Whisper to a scream.